Hey Alex, how are you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, Abhijit. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely, my
And
pleasure and
we're
honor.
live. Okay, we see about 12, 15 participants are joined. All right. I guess we can get started. And we are live as well. So, yeah, that's great. So, hey everyone, welcome back to another webinar that we are back again from PyNet Labs and Cisco together, where we're going to talk about empowering data center efficiency with automation strategies for Nexus and ACI platforms. I'm your host, as always, Abhijit, and I'm the CTO and co-founder at PyNet Labs Private Limited India. And I've been delivering a lot of consultancy and trainings around the network automation space. I myself am a DevNet expert as well as a CCSI instructor, and a lot of my time goes around delivering training and consultancies about SDN, about network automation, about I would say implementing or integrating DevOps into your network deployment lifecycle, and then a lot of automation stuff, I would say. And I've been doing this for more than 13 years now, so more than a decade now. And as part of the learning community, I prefer to kind of host shows with industry experts, which can actually empower you to learn more and more about the domain. So previously, we had a series of webinars with various experts from Cisco. And today I have another renowned expert in the domain of network automation as well as DevNet. His name is Alexander Stevenson, and he's the developer advocate at Cisco DevNet. And glad to have you, Alex. I would request you to please brief about yourself, about your experience, and what kind of expertise do you carry?
Sure. Thank you, Abhijit. And it's an honor to be here. I've been following your progress for some time. I first heard about you on LinkedIn, and the more I looked into you, the more I'm impressed with your operation. So to me, I really appreciate it. It is an honor, like I said. Uh, I'm a developer advocate and software engineer at Cisco DevNet. I've been with DevNet about 5 years now. I've been a
Well,
developer advocate for the last year, focusing specifically on the data center. And so what this allows me to do is to reach out to the community through blogs, through videos, through conferences, and bring them the latest and greatest ways that they can use Cisco products in the most optimal manner, as it were. So whether that be new features or how to use tools or just best practices, we're reaching out in any way we can to just bring the good news out and so that everyone can take advantage of these things and make their lives easier.
mhm.
And it's also a two-way street because a lot of time we get feedback. So people will say, "Oh, we don't like this.
Oh
Can you
yeah.
change it?" Go back to the team, right? Or can we get this feature added to the API? Hey, that's
Mhm.
a great idea. And then we'll take it in. I try to give credit where credit is due, but it makes me look good sometimes too because I get to go back to Cisco and say, "Hey, have you thought of this?"
Uh-huh.
And but I try my best to give credit to the people that are bringing these ideas because it is a community,
Of course, yeah.
and you've had people on from DevNet before, and you sort of exemplified this community that we have together, just bringing together different facets of IT, and
Mhm.
I think it's great. This is something that I thrive off of. And I've been in IT about 10 years. I started
Okay.
in networking, and I'd love to pick your brain about what your favorite parts of networking are. But I have a bachelor's in networking, and
Mm.
what really boosted my career, and this is what PyNet Labs does too, is I went to a coding boot camp
Mm, okay.
that taught me Python,
Okay.
and that really set me apart and just launched my career after that.
Mm.
And this is why I think PyNet Labs is so valuable. Um, So
Yeah.
yeah, I have the networking experience. I have the coding experience. I even coded as a kid back in the day. I started with the basic programming language. I'm not sure a lot of people watching
Print
this
hello
even
world.
hello world. And it just gave me the logic as a kid. I think
Mm.
this is why we should get kids involved. Not too much pressure on them, but it's for the whole family. And the coding, thank goodness my parents worked hard and were able to give me a computer, because that has throughout my life allowed me to think in a programmatic way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's really what I'm all about. I love automation too. I love data center, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
uh, it's all very
That's great. So
exciting to
when you say
me.
that, and how did you, I mean, do you also carry some core networking experience from back in the days, and then there has been some instance which kind of made you fall in love with automation? Because these are two different streams that we talk about, right? Networking and then automation, and the key, I would say, technical stack knowledge that one requires in order to be able to blend together is not very common. And it hasn't been so long that this has been driving the industry. But nowadays, I see that more and more organizations are starting to implement automation into their domain. Now, automation is also something which is not clearly very new into the organization. We've been looking at automation in other domains as well, in terms of application development, in terms of industrial automation, and whatnot. But nowadays, because I strongly also believe that because the world has went through a pandemic, and we have learned a new way to use our data. The amount of data that we're generating have also scaled a lot. And there has to be a better way of handling the hardware requirements or the hardware implementations, like routers and switches, and keeping our data centers ready to handle that scale of data. So there definitely should be something which actually keeps an eye on how your network is doing, keeps an eye on if there's something bad is going to happen. There's been a wonderful, I would say, improvement by implementing proactive troubleshooting instead of reactive troubleshooting, which world was usually using. So there are so many aspects that I see nowadays the organizations are trying to implement in their automation. But it's not too early that we talk about that. Like 5 years ago, nobody really was implementing automation into their domain, at least not at scale. So what do you think about that? What was your instance of finding out that this is the correct time to start implementing automation into network domains?
I love the way you broke that down. It's very hard to follow. Sometimes the way you describe it is so perfect, but I'll give it my best shot.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Um, I like I said, I went to school for networking officially and fell in
Mhm.
love with the CLI.
Yeah, so that's your
And
core networking love.
it's the core network. I love subnetting, and all of that was just great for me. I think the networking community is distinct,
Hmm.
in some ways from the comp sci community. It intertwines, but we're also different.
Mm.
Uh, and so I did the traditional networking. I started in network support when I was in school. I worked with a local company, and I loved everything about it. It was a lot of pressure though.
Hmm.
There's a lot of pressure in on being on call, and
Oh yeah.
all that is very difficult. And I think it's something the pressure for software is different, but now
Hmm.
with DevOps and everything, a lot of pressure is spread out to the whole community. But the networking, I'm loyal to networking. We like to keep the lights on, as I say. So things like monitoring, as you mentioned, and automation are key.
Hmm.
And what really what propelled me to go to that coding boot camp is I was working in networking, and
Hmm.
I'm in my free time, I would be doing like
Hmm.
some online courses or something. And a senior coworker saw me, and this gentleman, he said, "Hey, I saw you're interested in programming, Um, why don't you here, check this out?" And he gave me something that I ended up not using that specifically. It was like, I forget what he showed me, what framework it was. It was some
Hmm.
web framework, but it just sparked an interest in it. I said, you know what, he believes in me. Yeah, I'm going to do this, and I
Hmm.
took a chance. So I think that's why mentoring is so important, even if it's not
Yeah.
official, just to notice what people are doing and just push them in the right direction. Um, you know what? I try to stay in my own lane as much as I can
Okay.
nowadays. I don't offer advice unless it's asked for. But if I see someone that's really interested in something,
Mm,
I will try to guide them as much as I can without interfering too
hmm
much.
hmm
Uh, but yeah, so that's what it was, just encouragement. And like I said, the way that I had grown up, starting programming at an early age, just the automation made sense
hmm
to me. And like you said, it's new. It's something that's just come along in the last
Yeah.
5 or 10 years. The data center automation is sort of behind the curve,
Yeah.
and and when we're involved in this cutting edge community like we are, Abhishek, you being an expert, I'm going to throw myself in with you there. You know, uh, still, when you talk to people at conferences and stuff, you
hmm
realize we're in this bubble that some people have not started using
Yeah,
automation.
yeah. I interact with people almost every day, and people still talk to me that can't we just go on CLI and configure that interface? So I say
I
you
get it.
can. But that's not what we talk about when we think of network deployments at scale, right? And I bluntly tell them also that if you're talking about configuring small scale networking, then you probably might not need automation at all. But when you talk about bigger giant organizations trying to handle petabytes of data in and out of their data centers, you definitely need a better, or you need, I would say, since Cisco have it inside now, you need 1,000 eyes on your network to know what's running. So that's where you need automation. That's my take on it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thousand Eyes, App Dynamics.
Hmm
Uh, I used to work at Apple as well. We used App Dynamics at Apple, and
hmm
I love it. And I understand
hmm
I understand what you're saying, and I also understand where people are coming from because I've been there where it's, hey, it works, don't touch it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
don't
yeah.
touch anything. This is working. And
That's
I
correct.
get it. I get it. But now we're getting to the point where it's with the large scale, like you said,
Yeah.
you can't get around it. It is just something that needs to be addressed
Yeah, I
now.
mean, if anything goes down on your network, then that's completely a direct damage to the business incomes, and the stakeholders are not going to like it. So you better keep your network up and running all the time, and they're ready to configure whatever it takes to keep the network up and running. That's what the world demands, and that's where automation comes as the solution. So when we think about data center platforms, what do you say? What are the popular platforms? And we talk about Nexus and we talk about ACI. It's not, I guess it's barely been now a decade almost, right? Since Epic DC was announced, and then it got changed to or renamed to ACI, and now almost every organization looks forward to implement ACI. But then we're talking one step ahead, that how to automate ACI. Any background about this?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the timeline because right, we have ACI there, which came along in 2013. Well,
Yeah.
really, we should step back to 2011 for APIs,
Okay. Okay.
right? So APIs in NX API, for example, which
Yeah. Yeah.
we can talk about a little bit.
On
So
box
then
programmability.
on-box programmability, sure. And then from there in the next year, 2012, we have automation officially, which now that's something I want to touch on if we have time too, is there's just the term automation has
Mhm.
evolved so much, right? It used to just mean one thing, and now it's encompassed so much more. But we had things like Data Center Network Manager in
Mhm.
2012, which has
Yeah.
evolved to Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller
Yeah.
now, which was the first official, as far as
Correct.
I know,
Yeah.
automation platform. And then ACI was software-defined networking in 2013,
Mhm.
and then network function virtualization,
Yeah.
programmability in 2015 with NSO,
Mhm.
which I'm not an NSO expert. Jesus on our dev advocacy team is a great NSO expert, and now we have ACI, sorry, not ACI, but Intersight
Oh
with
yeah.
things like AI coming
Mhm.
on board. And if we have a chance to talk about the GitHub repo that I've put
Oh
together,
yeah.
it touches on all of these. So the whole
Mhm.
spectrum from the APIs, the NX API, software-defined networking with ACI to
Mhm.
programmability and intersite. Automation has now come to encompass all of that. And then when we talk about orchestration now too,
Mhm.
when we combine automation and orchestration, that's when we're really getting into the cloud and being able to stand up, configure, and orchestrate entire infrastructures. And that's what's needed now that we're in the cloud and we're using AI. Uh, these are things, orchestration and automation go hand in hand.
Mhm.
And this is something that if you want to be a DevOps engineer, you want to be a cloud engineer, you want to be a platform engineer, whatever you want to call it, these are things you're going to at least need to understand at a core level.
Mm.
And I
That's
strive to be an expert in these, but there's just so much.
Yeah, it's a vast field, I would say. I mean, there are so many platforms and so many ways nowadays to interact with the platform or orchestrator that you're using. ACI for that matter. You can directly log in and still doing automation at a level because it uses SDN architecture. And being a controller, it manages certain sort of infrastructure for that sake, Nexus 9K devices. And then on top of that, you can not only interact with ACI using GUI, you can also use your Python scripts. You can use certain other tools. You can integrate it with DevOps tools and build an entire workflow automation using CI/CD pipeline, whatnot. So I heard about, I would say, as we talked earlier also, that you have been working officially onto one of DevNet's official repository, which includes various ways of implementing automation on data center platforms, specifically on Nexus and ACI. Tell us more about that. What kind of tools are we talking about?
Sure. This is part of my learning experience that I wanted to share with everyone, Abhijit. And
Mhm.
it's because when I started getting into automation, I realized network automation includes SDN programmability and now AI-driven management.
Mhm.
And data center automation translates into real world savings.
Mhm.
So we have surveys and research showing that just automation in the data center can reduce operational costs by 30%.
Wow.
Okay, we gain 40% efficiency, 70% reduction in human errors, and also accelerate the deployment of new services by 50%. And that's just automation in the data center.
Okay.
We're not even talking about orchestration yet.
Mm.
Okay. So I saw the business need.
Mhm.
When I got into learning more and more about data center automation, I understood that this is something that needs to be brought to the community. The benefits need to be explained. So I put together the repo so that I could sort of practice
Mhm.
uh, doing these technologies. Um, I like to think of it as spokes on a wheel. You mentioned Python,
Yeah.
orchestration tools, Terraform, and whatnot. I wanted to understand I wanted to grok every data center product that Cisco has. I want to know every way that I
Mhm.
could possibly automate it. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be an expert in all of them, but I want to know, hey,
That's
I can
correct.
touch
Yeah.
it, right? With Ansible. Oh, Ansible's not working for
Mhm.
some reason. I can do this with Terraform instead. Oh, I'm not able to use Terraform
Yeah.
on this device. Oh, that's okay. I
Correct.
can use a Python script instead. Okay.
Mm.
It's just like a martial
I think
art
there
or
are pros and cons of using every way. I remember attending Cisco Live last year at Melbourne, and I attended one of the demonstrations by Camilio Rossi, I guess. And he was demonstrating the differences between using Terraform and using Ansible in order to automate ACI, of course. And Ansible had its own pros, and Terraform had its own pros in terms of configuration state management and whatnot. And that's very true. I agree on the fact that you're saying that until unless you know all the possible ways to interact with the controller that is deployed on your organization or in your organization in order to manage a certain sort of fabric, you're not gonna be able to decide what's the tool that you really require in order to manage that. For X organization, interacting with the ACI using Python script might be beneficial, but for Y organization, using Terraform or Ansible would make more sense. So yeah, I completely vouch on that. Please continue.
Sure. And I agree with what you're saying. I look at the way you just described is the same way that I guide people that are asking about the cloud, right? You don't have to know AWS and Azure and Google. Just learn one of them to begin with, and you don't have to go so deep in the other ones. But anyway, so about the repo, yeah. So it has ACI. It's called Data Center Development.
Okay.
And so far it has ACI, it has Nexus with NXOS, and it also has Intersight, and there are plans to add UCS and some other data center components in there. So, but already we have the core available with NXOS and ACI, the core of Cisco data center products. It's a public repo, and we're using open source tools. So for each of those, the main ways to interact with them are going to be in this repo at least, are Terraform, Python scripts, and Ansible. Now, depending on which one we're talking about, there are other ways, and I'm adding them all the time. The repo is not complete. It's a work in progress. One thing I've added recently, which you might find interesting, Abhijit, is with PyATS.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. So you had John Capobianco on.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that we have John in the house now.
We have John Capobianco on, and by good fortune, I was able to get my hands on his book that he wrote with Mr. Wade. So I dug in there and I, skipped to the section about how can I use it in the data center, and boom, I already added that part. So yeah, the core components are Terraform, Ansible, and Python. But yeah, I'm adding new vectors to automate all the time. And if you like, I can talk about the infrastructure I'm using as well, because I think it's so important, right?
Yeah.
So we have the different ways to connect to the data center, but how to practice, where is the infrastructure? So for this data center development repo, the main infrastructure I use is Cisco Modeling Labs.
Okay.
You can talk on, you've had experience with as well, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
I have a local Cisco Modeling Labs running on my just local mini PC. And this is a great investment. If I could spend $200 on anything, that might be it. Cisco Modeling Labs is so important. So I have a local Cisco Modeling Labs, and then I have the free DevNet sandboxes, both reservable and always on. And also we have dCloud. Most people, or many people might not be aware of what dCloud is, but it's like DevNet. They offer free labs, free sandboxes, and stuff like that. So, and I'm looking on expanding in the future, maybe getting a local ACI simulator or whatnot. But for now, the main infrastructure I'm using is local CML for a couple $100, as well as the free sandboxes and dCloud. So the reason I chose this is I want to give anyone that wants to practice with a data center, but they don't have physical access to an expensive data center, a way that they can go in and have practice. So they can this to practice for certifications. They could put it on their resume. Yes, I do have experience configuring ACI using Ansible, or, so really this is what our community is all about, is just helping each other get over the wall, getting a leg up with these free open source tools and these free resources for infrastructure. And I love it. So when you put that together, learning and teaching together with automation, I mean, I'm sold. This is what I love. This is why I'm in it.
I still, I love the way I've explored about the sandboxes that are publicly available. For the first instance that I got my eyes on them, I was like, is it for real? Cisco is making this resource available for everyone. And I double checked, I mean, for many times on the website, is there any price factor associated with it? Because I'm able to access it. It should not happen that an invoice is gonna drop on my email because getting hands onto the kind of resource consumable, I would say ACI, or you can say CML, or whatever sandboxes are available, they consume heavy resources. And since Cisco have hosted them publicly, I guess a lot of the participants who are watching us live must also be using these resources. But that's great. I mean, you can install your Python on your local machine. You can install Postman. You can install Terraform, everything on your local. But unless you have something to test it on, maybe if you don't have an ACI simulator or an actual ACI instance, or you don't have your Nexus devices up and running, what would you do of these scripts that you can develop? So having the correct infrastructure to test your development on is of course, yeah, important. And thank you for mentioning all the various ways that you can have the access of these, either locally deployed on, maybe you can have a server or something and you can still deploy it with the help of virtualization, or you can use publicly available sandboxes, or you can also reserve a lab on dcloud. So that's one piece, that making or getting the right set of infrastructure ready so that you can start building your automation tests on it. Yeah.
Would you say that someone that's going to be taking one of your courses, this would be a good place maybe to start working with the free sandboxes and stuff like that, just so they'd be ready?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, even nowadays we do deliver ACI trainings, and we have our on-prem data center, and we host a lot of ACI simulators, and that is pretty resource consumable. So sometimes it also happens that, being instructors, we need to access certain type of lab that is available on dcloud, which would take, I would say, days in order to make it ready in your infrastructure. We cannot really, and these are heavy appliances. So instructors, for that particular matter, are very restricted with time, because when you are in the session, you actually need to make sure that the infrastructure is up and running so that you can demonstrate that. It happens with me most of the time also. Even like, apart from ACI, there is other solutions, including SD-WAN, including SD access. So these appliances takes a good amount of time to boot and kind of start demonstrating sessions on them. So sometimes I switch it back to the sandbox and then start delivering my training, and then the demonstration works successfully. So that's a great resource which is available out there. And I strongly believe that everyone should make use of that.
Thanks. I see what you mean. Yeah, I take advantage of it as well
Mhm.
all the time, because people, let's say a learning lab, because we also have learning labs
Yeah.
at DevNet. One of them is not working correctly. I get feedback, the first place I go right to a sandbox, and it's so convenient. Like you said, I can't believe it's free. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll
And then the
and
word always on, it's so it's so, I would say, attractive. So anyone would like, no, I don't want to reserve anything. I don't want to wait for anything. Just go and hit this URL and GUI of ACI pops up there. Okay. I even remember the credentials for ACI Sandbox now.
yeah, it's like second nature. It's like
Yeah.
second. Yeah, it is tremendous.
So yeah, that's one part, that the infrastructure is available now. And then how would you go forward for using the repo? Can we fire up some demo? Would you like to
Yeah,
showcase
sure.
some?
Yeah, I can go ahead and share my screen
Yeah,
with
yeah, go
you.
ahead.
Okay. So, um, okay, you should be
Yeah,
seeing a split
that's correct.
screen.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so the repo is called Data Center Development. It's on the Cisco DevNet
hmm
GitHub.
hmm
And let me just move this bar out of the way.
We'll also
Okay.
make sure that whatever resources that we're talking about in this webinar gets shared with all the participants after the webinar.
Oh, that's great, Abhijit. I really appreciate it.
Mhm.
So it's called Data Center Development, and we have sections for ACI, Cisco Modeling Labs, Intersite, Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller, and XOS,
Mhm.
and even Proxmox, because I use Proxmox to host and manage my VMs.
Okay.
Different times I need to use Windows or a different Linux system, and I have a CML
Mm-hmm.
running there. So
Yeah.
this is not Proxmox is not a Cisco product. So let me just say, that is just something that I have on there because I found it is useful, but that is the one that is not
Mm-hmm.
a Cisco product. But I just wanted to make sure that people are able to use that if they need it.
Yep.
So yeah, so the first steps and everything is really spelled out. We have a directory here. So you would clone it,
Mm-hmm.
and whether you're on Mac or Windows, we always recommend starting a virtual environment.
Yeah.
And then once you have your virtual environment, you install from the requirements, and then you're ready to go. So if you want to go into, let's see, let's start. And I already installed the requirements, so I'm not going
Okay.
to run through
So you
that.
already have cloned the repo locally and then have your virtual environment fired up.
Exactly. And so I'm using VS Code,
Okay.
just a free
My favorite.
IDE. Yeah. And so I like to start with NXOS. So I would simply CD into NXOS. And if we start with Ansible, um, and looking at the NXOS, we have Ansible NXOS, PyATS NXOS, Python scripting NXOS, and the Python scripting is broken down, like you mentioned previously, for local device, meaning I can run the scripts from my computer and on device because NXOS has the Python environment on the device, so you can put scripts on there and run them from the device, which is so cool, right?
Yeah.
And then we have Splunk and Terraform as well. So if I'm in Ansible, right? So I have several playbooks. I can just start with this first one, which is, let me see here, gather facts. So we can
Okay.
start simply if you want to just gather facts. I have a playbook in here. Oops. So it's running a playbook that is predefined that will reach out. In this case, it's going to my local Cisco modeling labs
Mm-hmm.
that has NXOS on it. And this is what it looks like. So I have my Cisco modeling lab set up, have my NXOS 9000, and I have this device on it.
Awesome.
It's taking a moment to run.
So you're saying that the playbook that you have built in the Ansible is actually interacting with the devices inside of the CML?
That is correct.
That's
So
magic.
yeah, on my local network here, I have the mini PC over here. And so from this laptop, because it's all on the same network, I could
Huh?
reach out and run that playbook. And so instead of having to type in each command on the CLI inside because I could do it on the device. I could go in here and I
Yeah.
could show this and I could copy it, but it's much easier to use Ansible.
Mhm.
And so that's the most basic one is just gather facts. Just tell me everything about the device. Well, we can also configure things on the device. A simple playbook to do that. I have one here called Banner.
Okay.
So I said, if I look at what the banner says right now, so if I say show banner
Mhm.
exec, let's say, right? It says, welcome to NXOS CLI, right?
Yeah.
If I want to change that, I could have a playbook with Ansible. I say I want to change it to PyNet Labs plus DevNet equals success, right? So
Okay.
I could
That's true,
simply
by the way.
I can simply run that playbook. It'll take a moment. It says, okay,
Wow.
changing it. One thing changed. So now if I show there's a couple of ways I could check that. I could run that previous playbook. Remember, I have the gather
Oh.
facts, so I could look now, it will show me that, or I could go right on the device, run that command again, and you can see the banner has changed, right? So very simple way to just configure things on the NXOS. Also, I can do backups, right? So another playbook that we have on here is called backup config, right? So take it to the next level. I could back up a configuration, which I've done previously. I ran this backup configuration earlier today. So if I say ls, let me see. I have a backup folder in there. Yeah. So if I say ls backup, I can see that earlier today on, no, I didn't run it today, did I? Oh, let me run that playbook. So I run the playbook, backup, backup config. So if I run that playbook with Ansible against NXOS NCML, it will create a backup automatically. So I could use something as simple as a, oh, the term has slipped my mind because it's such an old way, but I use it every day. Abhijit, help me out. What is the term called when you use your local system to create automated in the CLI? You run something at a certain
Oh
time every
yeah,
day.
that's EEM, Embedded Event Manager.
Not it. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned embedded event manager because we can talk about that in a little bit, but that's not what I'm getting at. Uh, oh my, it has just slipped my mind. But anyway, on your system,
Yeah.
there's a way that you can run things every day from the CLI. Begins with the letter C, and it has slipped my mind. Cron, cron
Okay.
job.
Cron
I
jobs.
couldn't remember that.
All
So
right.
you could do something so because it's so from so long ago. That's probably why we couldn't remember, right? So you could have a cron job to run Ansible playbooks every day. So, just from a very simple perspective, you could back up your whole configuration every day just using a cron job, right? So that's the Ansible way.
That's great.
Then, then we also have the Python scripting that you mentioned. So if I back out of here and instead of being in the Ansible, I can go into my Python directory and I'll go into local scripting, right? I have some playbooks in there. Let me see. I can see Python 3 interfaces, config.py. And so now I'm running a Python script, which created a backup.
Okay.
Today is the 19th. Yep. So there we go. So it created two different files just from that one command. That was the Python script. So we moved from now Ansible to Python scripting. And you can see the Python was much faster for this particular system for some reason, right? So in my case, hey, that would tell me Python would be a better use case for saving backups on this particular laptop that I'm on right now.
It's awesome.
All right. Now for on device, which I think is really cool. Is it okay if I show that as well, Abhijit?
Oh yeah, of course. So just to give a glimpse to all the participants, I would say that we have a couple of ways of having automation implemented onto the Nexus platform, right? One we talk about is off-box programmability, and then we talk about on-box programmability. Well, off-box programmability is when our developments are all stored away from the Nexus device. It's not locally available. For example, the Python script that Alex just executed, it's not stored locally onto the Nexus box. So that's the concept which we call as off-box programmability, when the automation or when the implementation of scripts are happening away from the device, and by using one or the other methods of remotely communicating with your Nexus devices. When you execute such Python script that actually interacts with your Nexus box using HTTP, using SSH, using Telnet, and pulls or pushes configuration onto your Nexus box, that's the concept we will call it as off-box programmability. And when you have your Python scripts available locally onto the Nexus box, and you use the CLI of your Nexus and try to execute these Python scripts right within from within the Nexus device, we would call that concept as on-box programmability, which was pretty hot when the concept earlier was introduced on Nexus platforms. So yeah, please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you for explaining that. So now I'm on the actual device. I'm on the 9K inside my little CML environment here, and I can enter the guest shell. All right. I just want to highlight the script. So, oops, I spelled it wrong, didn't I? Okay, so I'm inside the guest shell now. And on this particular CML, the resources are a little bit constrained as compared to a
Yeah.
real data center running the 9K. So I had to put the scripts in a particular place. So I put them onto the boot flash. So if I cd boot flash and scripts, okay. And if I run ls on here, and you notice I'm running normal bash commands, which on most devices you can't do, right? That are running the
Yeah.
Cisco iOS. We're in the guest shell now, so we have access to bash on the actual device, which is really cool. So I have all these scripts on here now. So if I just run, say, Python 3, what's a good one? Inventory NXOS. .py. So I have placed this script on here with SCP or whatever way you want to securely
Transfer the
transfer
file.
that
Yeah.
onto the on box, onto the box. You can run the scripts from there. So if I say now I've run that script, let me just copy this command right here to make it a little bit easier on myself. I paste in here, and okay, so yeah, 822. So just right now, okay. So what that script did is it just gathered some information about the chassis, about the different slots and modules on this, and it saved it onto a file on the device. So you mentioned embedded event manager, which is another way we could run these scripts. There are several ways to run these scripts on the device besides embedded event manager, but this is just a great way to gather facts, save them locally, or send them out, right? I could use email, I could use an SNMP trap, I could install a Splunk agent on here if I had the space. On this one I don't, but I can install Splunk on here. There's several ways I could also send this information. So I could run scripts and send the results out several different ways from the box, so that from a monitoring perspective, I could have an automatic update every hour or every day from the device, showing what's going on. So I created several of those scripts, and I put them in the repo just so that people can have a start. This might be too simple for some people.
Yeah.
For some people, it's advanced, but if it is too simple for you, it could give you a great leg up and say, oh, hey, I'd like to expand on that, Abhijit, and go out in different ways and do much more on that. And that is fine. You could even make pull requests if you want, or you could fork the data center development repo and make some pull requests if you want to add some things. I would be happy to incorporate any advanced scripts or any ideas that you have in there as well.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right. So that is how to do it on the device. Okay, so
Awesome.
we've done Ansible, we've done Python scripting. I just want to show what Terraform against this same CML NXOS as well, real quick, because we mentioned orchestration before. Ansible is mainly a configuration management tool, but Terraform is orchestration, right?
Yeah.
So I want to be able to show that we can do some orchestration too. We're the cool kids, right? So
One of the best benefits that I love about Terraform is it does the state management. I mean, it takes care of all the dependencies of the configurations that you might be having. For example, I have a VLAN, and that particular VLAN is kind of something for which I have configured an SVI interface. And the same VLAN is actually has some other configurations attached to it. Now, if I try and use Ansible and push certain sort of configuration about this VLAN and then different layers of that configuration, then when I'm trying to undo that configuration, I will manually have to take care of all the dependencies and then remove it sequentially from the box. But if you try and push the same configuration using Terraform, then Terraform knows what kind of configuration it has pushed on the box. And then you simply need to trigger your command called undeploy. And then it's going to take care of or destroy that configuration. And then Terraform is going to take care of removing every layer of configuration it has done for that particular feature. That's one of the best features that Terraform has. And yeah, let's see.
I like that you mentioned that you don't have to
Take care of the dependency
do it
layer.
step by step. It's declarative, right?
Hmm.
Not iterative. And that's one of the beauties of ACI as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Just declare what you want, it will figure out the rest and it'll do it. And I love that
that's
too.
correct. Yeah.
So let's give a quick demo of how we could use Terraform. And I apologize if people can't see. I'm trying to spread these out so we can share the
Yeah.
screen with
I
both
think
of them.
I can see that pretty well.
Great. So if I just start with the show IP interface brief, we can see that there's just one interface on here right now. But I have under, let me see, let's go Terraform. We're under NXOS still. We're under Terraform. I can create interfaces. So I have here a module that will create some interfaces for me. So let's just run it. So if I go into CD out of there and go CD out of there, CD into NXOS Terraform. And I'm going to say create interface. So I'm in the create interfaces
Okay.
Directory inside of the repo under NXOS still. If I just say Terraform init, 3 commands, you know them well, I'm sure.
Oh,
Terraform
yeah.
init, Terraform plan, which will make those checks and show me what's going to be done.
Yeah.
And then the final one is Terraform apply. And I know I'm
Fine.
already ahead of time, I'm going to have to run this twice for some reason. I don't know if you've
Fine.
ever run into that, but for some reason it will fail. And I know because I've practiced enough preparing, I wanted to have everything right for you. All right. I know I have to run it again for some reason. Okay. So now I go back and I run that same command and now I have the devices. So
Awesome.
just 3 commands just
Yeah.
created those interfaces so quickly. And as you mentioned, we can just run the destroy
Yeah.
one time.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the
I go
beauty.
back here. Boom, we're back to one interface. How quick is that, right? How much time did we save, Abhijit?
That's exactly what I love about it. That the destroy feature just takes care of. Whenever I run it, I remember the scene watching Will Smith flashing that battery in Men in Black. That okay, the memory is gone now. It's exactly what it does.
That is exactly
I'm
what
not
it
sure if you
is.
remember the scene.
I remember. I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah, definitely. You know, have you
Awesome.
had a chance to play with Open Tofu yet?
Sorry, pardon me.
Open Tofu, I think it's called, the Terraform alternative.
No, I haven't had a chance of working with that.
I haven't either. There's just so much going on, I haven't had a chance. But right now,
Well,
besides,
while working towards the DevNet expert certification and also helping prepare participants, my eyes are just like, this is the blueprint. Okay.
all
So yeah.
right.
And
Um,
Terraform is an integral part of the DevNet expert curriculum as well. And people needs to practice with Terraform, of course, focusing on the ACI. And yeah, I even deliver that in our most of the trainings that happens around the DevNet expert. Without Terraform, you would not be on track of becoming a DevNet expert. So you, Alex, I see a hashtag for you.
yeah, it's a must. It is a
Oh
must.
yeah.
I had someone reach out to me from, where's that young man from? Algeria the
Okay.
other day, and he said, I want to be a DevOps engineer. I'm a front end engineer. And he was like, tell me what I need to know. And I was
Mm.
like, okay, here's what you need to know. You need to know da 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 da, and Terraform was in there. And I thought he would be shocked, but he said, hey, okay, I can do that. And then I had forgot some things, and I came back and I said, another thing you need to do is need to look at job postings,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Look at job postings. So whatever they're looking for in the top paying job postings, learn
Yeah.
those. And he was
The,
like,
J- the J-
yes, why didn't I think of that? So yeah,
that
it's a
variation
must.
of JD is important. Yes.
It is a must. It is a must.
Awesome. So
In,
this is
in
working with Terraform against the Nexus platforms. And then what's next?
What's next is I wanted to show you another infrastructure that we mentioned, which is the free sandboxes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to make a switch. We're going to pivot from NXOS, which was
Mm-hmm.
locally on TML. Now we're going to pivot to ACI, which
Okay.
is running in the DevNet learning labs. Okay,
Mm.
so I will CD back into the
Yeah, while you
main.
CD into that, I see participants attending, and I'd also love to know if anyone have ever worked with these tools that Alex is demonstrating about. So if you guys have been working with Terraform, Ansible, any tool that actually is implemented in your organization, or you're preparing for some certifications, feel free to share your story about how you got introduced about it and how you use it in the chat. And if you have any questions around it, feel free to drop them in the chat box. We'll be happy to answer them as well.
Yeah, happy to see that. Happy to see the input, the questions, the
Yeah.
feedback. Thank you so much, Abhijit. So for the ACI folder, everything is also spelled out. You know, I'm an organized
Okay.
person, so I'm going to make sure that we have Ansible, we have MSO, Nexus Dashboard, Python, Terraform, on and on. We have the infrastructure here. We have some different infrastructure you can use for free. We're happening to use the ACI simulator always on sandbox
Mhm.
from Cisco DevNet. We don't even need to reserve the sandbox, as I'm sure you know, which
Mhm.
is makes it so beautiful. Again, some of the main ways that we can connect, if some people are just joining us, as far as the different infrastructure, we have modeling labs, the sandboxes, which we're using now, dcloud, and more. And the main ways in this data center development repo to connect to that are with Ansible, Python, and Terraform. And it's no different for the ACI one here. So I can once again use an Ansible playbook. These are a little bit different. Let
Mhm.
me see. In ACI, I can just run one command to, oops, let's see, am I in the right? Oh, I need to go into Ansible.
Okay.
Ansible ACI, and I can just run one command. This time it's asking for a password because I switched it up a
Give
little bit this
pass the
time.
flag, yeah.
Now, I'm using Ansible Vault this time. Before I used environmental variables. If someone goes into the repo, the data center development repo, which I hope they do, Abhijit, they're going to notice a method to my madness because for each of the different ways, I'm also using different security measures. You know, so
Yeah,
for
yeah.
one, I have environmental variables. For the other one, in this case, Ansible Vault.
I think
So I
knowing
kind
how to store your secure credentials also is quite important. I mean, not everyone's going to be comfortable passing it on the runtime. Sometime you might be storing it into their environment variables. Sometime you'd be using something like Vault, HashiCorp Vault, or sometime you're going to use the native capability, just like Ansible has, where you can pass a flag that asks the password on the runtime, and then you provide the credentials. So yeah, this aspect also has different methods to it, not just interacting with device, but also to how you pass your credentials.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I would say that is a must. Security along with testing, would you say, is also something that we want to see done
Yeah,
all the time, all the time. And I need
yeah,
to
yeah.
add more testing into this repo. That's one of the first things that I need to do.
Awesome.
But so that's just quickly to touch on that we can use Ansible as well to interact with not only CML and the device there, but to the free sandbox from DevNet. We can also use Terraform. So if I back out and go into the Terraform repo and see what is in there, and I can also mirror the same activity in the repo itself. Let's see, ACI, what is it? Terraform. Okay. I give some very detailed explanations in here, and I have one here to get the system. So see ls, if I do cd, and I just have one in here for now, and I'm just going to highlight it. But if we use our same good old commands, let me save myself some time because those were run very recently. If I say terraform init,
Wow.
terraform apply. Oops, and I skipped plan, which is fine in some cases.
Mhm.
0 added, but it did give me the output that I wanted.
Correct.
So I just wanted to demonstrate that once again, we're using Terraform. We're switching from Ansible to Terraform for the DevNet always on sandboxes.
Awesome.
All right. So if we still have some time, can I keep going?
Oh, yeah, you can.
All right,
I think
all
we
right,
still
great.
have about 20 minutes.
Awesome. So for the next thing, instead of the always on sandbox, I wanted to highlight that we also have the reserved sandboxes.
Mhm.
So now for Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller, we have this reserved one, which I've already reserved. So let me just copy the credentials real quick. I'm using what used to be called AnyConnect, but now it's called Cisco Secure Client.
Another
So
rebranding.
another rebranding. It's difficult to keep track, but I never question the expertise of my higher ups, right? They know
That's
what they're doing.
that's a
I'm
smart
just
move, I would say.
I stay out of the politics, okay? So I'm connecting now to this reserved sandbox that I have.
Mhm.
So now I need to switch inside the repo. I need to get out of here. And forgive me if my typing is so slow. If you have shortcuts that make things so much faster, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fast enough.
All right, thank you. Okay. So now I've switched in the repo. We've switched now to a different infrastructure. Now we're on a reserved sandbox from Cisco DevNet. And now instead of ACI, we've moved to Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller. So I
Mhm.
have all these scripts for Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller. So I want to run them. The first one is to log in. This will log in and store the cookie
Mhm.
locally. And we got a code 200. And this is another
Wow.
thing that we use a different security measure. We're
Mhm.
storing the cookie in a local file in this case called secret.txt, right? And then I added that file to the git ignore so it wouldn't be pushed up. This is a really hacky and basic way to do security, and it's just for learning, all right? So if you do look at the code in this repo, that's something that I would not copy for a production environment, but for our learning purposes, I think it's
Yeah.
perfectly fine. Just use this way, right? So I did a simple login with that script right there. And then this next one, we're going to get the switch information. So now we're going to reach out to our reserved sandbox and boom, very quickly, now we have all the switch
Wow.
information, right? So let's say now instead of that, with a Python script, we want to reach out to the DevNet reserved sandbox and get the fabric information from the Nexus step. There it is, very quickly,
Awesome.
right on point. So now we can see more things. We can see VRFs instead, which is something you know much about, I'm sure. Let me go.
Well, this is the
Oops.
agility that I talk about. I mean, we can see that we're barely running a single commands when, of course, you got to spend some time developing all of these scripts and then Terraform manifests and all of that. But once it is ready, you exactly know which is the Python script, which is the Ansible playbook, which is the Terraform manifest that you need to execute in order to gather your data or in order to push your configuration. People need to, I would say, identify that what are different ways of interacting with your infrastructure and then figure out the best one according to your organizational needs. Once you figure that out and you start developing on that, you would definitely be using a lot of these scripts in your day-to-day manners. For example, you would not be going into your data center at 1 a.m. in the morning or in the night to trigger the backup. You can probably maybe schedule the execution of your Python script, and then that particular script is going to take care of taking backups of your inventory devices, and then also going to notify you on your email that I have done the job. Good night. So that's the beauty of automation.
It is the beauty of automation. Totally. It gives you that peace of mind,
Mhm.
right? Like you said, saving time and peace of mind and saving money
Yeah,
is just a win-win because even if you don't have the massive infrastructure, you at least want to save yourself some time,
of course, yeah.
from a system admin perspective,
Mhm.
help desk. I'm going to
I
save
even
time.
interact with some of my students, and they say that we don't really have that big of a network deployment. We are a small scale company, and we have few routers and few switches and few firewalls, but there are a lot of daily jobs that we need to take care of. So even though implementing automation is not something that we require at scale, but I, to save time for myself, have built some scripts which actually gets the job done for all of my tasks that my manager assigns to me. So I don't really need to keep sitting on my decks and then collect the management IP addresses and versions, the current versions of software that are installed on the inventory or device. I just fire up my script and it does the job, and it also sends an email to my manager. So that personally also saves time, not just for organization. Some smart people do use automation in this way.
Right, right. Yeah, I totally understand what you say. Even though there is some nostalgia, right, for the CLI, I understand, right, but really we just can't avoid automation now.
Yeah, yeah.
And speaking of automation, I just ran this Python script that tells us that there are no VRFs, right? It came back with an empty array. It's very small there at the bottom, but it's an empty array, right? But I can create VRF with just one simple script or one command that I'm running. So if I say create VRF NDFC,
Mm-hmm.
it created them that quickly. So if I run the git
Awesome.
command again, it now tells us, and I can also go in here on the dashboard and I could verify that as well. The
Mm-hmm.
dashboard makes things much quicker,
Mm-hmm.
but I found that, there we go. I found that the scripts are even faster. When you
Mm-hmm.
use this reservable sandbox, the results are very fast when we're using Python. The GUI, or the UI, as the kids say nowadays, the UI sort of lags, it takes 5-10 seconds
Yeah.
to do things, which is frustrating for some people.
Yeah.
Some people have issues like, I don't know I don't want to label them, but they have a lack of patience. They need to get things done now. If you're one of those people that you want results now, 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 then
Yeah.
definitely
Well,
Python.
I look at it from another perspective. I would say that even the dashboards needs information from the devices itself. So they themselves internally are gonna execute some sort of programmability to keep interacting with the infrastructure and then fetch out the detail and then visually show that detail to the user. So it's the programmatic aspect at the end which is gonna kind of help you achieve your goals with your network deployments.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So yeah, so I created a VRF
Oh
named
yeah.
VRF Python. I can just as easily delete that same VRF if I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So as a matter of fact, I'm going to do that real quick.
Yeah.
And this just highlights that Python can do orchestration too, right? We talked about
Oh yeah. Of course.
Terraform doing orchestration, right? But if you get right down to it, I
Mm-hmm.
just deleted that VRF with a single command.
Wow.
Okay, so now we're back to the empty array, right? It's a simple little trick, but we can stand up infrastructure. We can
Yeah, yeah.
remove infrastructure with Python as well. So Terraform has many advantages, over Python, I know, for infrastructure, but we can also do it with Python as well. And I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, even sometimes you also, for example, for the same instance where you are required to delete a VRF, so you might want to first figure out what is the existing VRF that you want to delete, and then execute the required CLI commands to get that VRF deleted. But then such kind of pre-checks is also something that you can have built in into your Python script, which goes and interacts with the device, pulls out the necessary information, figures out the interested data, and then ends up configuring it or deleting it. That's also an automated way, or automated measure that you can implement into your aspects, right?
I'm glad that you mentioned those pre-checks, and that's something that I incorporate into Ansible as well. Pre-tasks
Yeah.
are valuable, right? So you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches down the road if you just go ahead
Yeah.
and
That's
put
the
those.
beauty that controllers or orchestrators brings on the table. What when you look at the SDN architecture, then bringing in controllers into your domain interacts or implements functional checks and then programmatical checks and syntactical checks. It just makes sure that whatever script that you have written is syntactically correct, it's functionally correct, it's programmatically correct. It's not going to bring down your network. I also read one of the surveys that Cisco came up with a couple of years ago, and Cisco mentioned that about 80% of their customers still rely on manual way of configuring and configuring the networks. And out of these 80% of their customers, around 70% of the TAC tickets that they get that Cisco gets from these customers are just because of misconfigurations. So that's a huge number. I mean, and if the customers actually don't do misconfigurations onto the devices, Cisco would not really get 70% of the TAC tickets. Yeah. So if there is something which you can put in the middle, such as an SDN controller, including Epic, which is basically a controller that manages your Nexus devices, or vManager, which manages your Vantage devices, or SD Access, which manages your LAN fabric or campus fabric, then these controllers in the middle are going to make sure that whatever configuration that you're trying to push onto the device does not break your network, right?
Right. I'm glad that you mentioned that. I love hearing you talk about it because it just rolls off your tongue. All of this technology
Thank you.
fascinates me.
Thank you for that.
And there are great benefits. We talked earlier about, I shared these benefits of data center automation, but when we're talking specifically about the Cisco data center products that you mentioned,
Yeah.
we're receiving a 40% reduction in operational expenses just within the first year. So you mentioned 30% op cost savings with
Wow.
just automation. But now when we're talking Cisco automation and orchestration with their products, first year 40% saving. And then from then on, we're doubling the 30% we saw with automation. So Cisco product automation and orchestration, 60% reduction in operational costs, saving yourself a 50% reduction in time as well. With these products for data center orchestration, which include NXOS, ACI, dashboard, you mentioned APIC, right?
Yeah.
And so far, I have all of these in the repo. I'm going to be adding UCS at a later time.
Wow.
And you mentioned the code and putting those pre-checks in there as well. And
Yeah.
in Ansible, we need pre-checks in Python. We need unit tests. And, we have PyATS that John Capobianco and yourself talk about good ways to protect yourself when using automation. But much of the code that you need to get yourself started would be found on Cisco Code Exchange. I want to make sure that I shared this slide with your people, Abhijit, with our people. I'm considered a member of your community as well.
Yeah.
But for the infrastructure, for the local environment, for the tools and the products that we're going to use, there are 4 things that DevNet can help you with, right? We can help you through the learning labs, which are free. And I hope I have time to show you one of the learning labs I made, but we have the free sandboxes and we have the docs and we have the Code Exchange. If no one has checked out Code Exchange, Cisco Code Exchange is a place where you can go ahead for many different technologies. You can, let's say you want to work with data center. You can go into data center. I want to work with ACI. I want to work with ACI using Go. Okay, there's code samples here for all these different technologies and products, along with automation use cases and so forth. So we have a lot of free code there that, once again, you want to verify for yourself. I'm so glad that you added that, right? You want to verify everything yourself with the proper checks and balances using controllers, pre-checks, whatnot. But there are all these code out there. And you got me talking about the learning labs. I want to share, and we were talking about NXOS today. I created this learning lab just for Cisco Live called Automating Network Tasks with Cisco NXOS device level APIs. Okay, this walks us through the 3 different interfaces, which include NX CLI, NX API REST, and NX API CLI for embedding the CLI commands over HTTP and whatnot. We have NetConf, RESTConf,
Just from gRPC.
gRPC, and whatnot. We have Ansible on here. And I created this playbook, for example, that will, in one
Wow.
single command, just reach out. Oh, it can't be found. Let me see here. I need to step back a second. Probably need to clone this again. Go back here.
I think using this would not even require you to have VS Code locally installed. You can just use the environments made ready by the Learning Labs and just go, go, go.
That's right. That's right. Okay, there was a slight
Yeah, that's
problem
fine.
here. Run bash invalid command. That's fine. And I had just run this previously. That's so strange.
And there might be
Um,
some, I would say, dependency configuration that might be creating a conflict.
yeah. I'm just gonna try to solve. I have to try to solve it just real quick if you give me a
Yeah, go
second.
ahead. Go ahead.
I'm gonna add the SSH to it. Okay, put the password in. Okay. Everything, I tried to spell out everything perfectly for you so the user doesn't have to think too much. They can just follow along.
Yeah. The nicely
That-
descriptive way of mentioning before every step that what's happening also enlightens the user to know what exactly is happening. So it also maps in the brains of users that, okay, this is something I can introduce in my code or introduce in my practices that I follow. That's
I know, I know why it's not working. We're still on
okay.
the,
Oh yeah,
we're
on
still
the VPN, on the reservable
on
sandbox.
the VPN. That's what it was. Okay, so let me try it again. Oh, I always do that, right? It's always something simple. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight that I have this great NXOS learning lab, and it's still
I think you'll have
it's
to run it
probably
again. The
yeah.
VPN was disconnecting.
Yeah, it threw me off because I was in that VPN. I need to run those entire setup commands again. But anyway, I just wanted to highlight that I have
Yeah.
this learning lab. I also developed another one called Machine Learning for Network Engineers Part 1, because as we get into AI now, automation is tying into that. So if anybody's interested in that, we have Machine Learning for Network Engineers Part 1. So it's another
I'm
free
gonna try
learning.
my hands on that.
Try your hands on that. I stay in my lane, Abhijit. Data center is already so much,
Oh yeah.
so much with data center. I'm just amazed. So I'm just trying to grok as much as I know and stay in my lane. But, as part of my job,
Oh
I
yeah.
would be doing a service to the community if I didn't also, start playing around and researching with AI and making sure that everyone is up to date with what they need to do with AI too.
Yeah,
Because,
for sure.
it's just part of the process. We can't ignore these things.
Of course, yes. Just like
But
every day passing by, I strongly think that whosoever is thinking about starting with their network automation journey tomorrow, you're gonna be late. It's today when you should start printing "Hello World" on your terminals.
exactly, exactly. You need to start today. I would highly recommend for anyone, whether you're interested in DevOps, you're interested in data center, you're interested in networking, to use DevNet, use the code exchange, the learning labs, the sandboxes, the docs. These are all free. All right. Use my data center development repo and get yourself started, get your foot in the door, and then you don't have to do it in that order, but you also want to do PyNet labs, right? That is
Okay.
going to prepare you for the certifications, and that is going to make you an expert as well. So you
Yeah.
need to do both. I highly recommend. They're going to take great care of you. If you're watching this, sign up for PyNet labs. I'm a big fan. So everyone,
Likewise, yeah. I got the
make
logic,
sure
I got the
you
mathematical expression today itself from Alex that PyNet Labs
yeah,
and NET together.
end up with together.
So
Right. And
that's
that's my
great.
personal, that I'm not speaking on behalf of Cisco. I just want to say
Oh
my
yeah.
personal recommendation is PyNet labs. So
Awesome.
make sure you do that. And we work together, so it just goes hand in hand.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Do
Awesome.
you
I
have any
guess we're
other
pretty good
questions?
watching through the demos and what we have right now. I guess someone in the chat is asking about a question. I do have ACI in my organization. and I'm kind of
Hmm.
new and learning it, but I also want to leverage Ansible and Python going forward to learn and grow. So I'm wondering if you could suggest the right path to hone these skill sets and implement the same in the production. Would you like to take that question?
Yes, and I need to look something up while I'm answering you, because there is Ansible with Terraform are a perfect match. A lot of people think that it's either or. That's a great
Yeah.
question. And I've talked with people at Cisco Live about this specifically, is people are like, I like Terraform, and I've been told that we can't use Ansible if we use Terraform. That is not true. They go hand in hand. There is someone on my team that is an expert at Terraform and Ansible together, and I just sent them an email today. The surname is Jane. Hold on, let me
Okay.
see here. Sent. So Anvitha Jain, that's Anvitha Jane, Jain, is
Mhm.
someone at Cisco who is an expert at combining Ansible and Terraform together. They have done talks specifically at Cisco Live, Abhijit,
Okay.
breaking down how you can use them in conjunction. They have projects, code ready to go that'll show you exactly how to do that. So you could you could
Blend
even
both of these.
Google or search that person along with Ansible Terraform,
Mhm.
or reach out to them directly for questions.
Mhm.
And there's also Cisco Live on Demand. If you can
Mhm.
search for Cisco Live on Demand, there's talk specifically
Okay.
from the last year. I think it was in Amsterdam, Cisco Live EMEA,
Okay.
where they broke down how to use Terraform and Ansible together for ACI. So yes, they definitely can be used together.
Yeah.
And reach out to Jane or search the work that they've done on this
Yeah.
subject because it's great.
Yeah, that's a great topic, I would say. Even I delivered a training just specifically on Ansible last month, and it was part of my content delivery that about how to integrate both of them together and use it for
Ah,
certain use cases. So I look forward to put up the content as well. So yeah, thanks for highlighting that, by the way.
sure. Sure, my pleasure.
And yeah, if you look at the correct path, I would suggest Ashish to also start your journey, like the path you mentioned in the chat below. But you should get your hands dirty first with programmability. If you are good with networking, if your routing and switching skills are better, then you better get started to learn about what are different ways of interacting with network devices. Don't fall in straight away into ACI and straight away into Nexus and straight away into a lot of complex SDN solutions, but first learn the method of building Python scripts to interact with your device, to maybe configure a loopback interface, or to maybe configure, I would say, routing protocols, and then fetch out these informations, and then learn conditioning into Python that if this is my interface and that's the state of my interface, then take this action on the interface. Or same thing applies on to different services, including BGP, including ACL, including NAT. And slowly and gradually, you will discover limitations into your code, and then you would start wondering about solutions that you can implement in order to resolve those limitations with one way of interacting with network device. And you yourself will start discovering that, okay, this is the limitation that I faced with Python, and the answer is Ansible. And then same is going to happen with Ansible. You're going to end up reaching out to an extent where you would find one use case that cannot be implemented with Ansible, but it can be done either by Python or by CI/CD or by Terraform. And this is how you gain your knowledge towards finding out the correct tool for your requirements, and then that kind of increases your expertise. So yeah, that's my bit for you. Anything you would like to add up, Alex?
No, I think I couldn't say it better if I tried.
That's awesome. So yeah, I guess we're pretty good, and that pretty much highlights everything that we wanted to talk about on this particular webinar. If I give you a summary, then we started off with our introductions. We started out with the background journeys. Then we started off with how we got introduced with automation. And then we talked about different ways that are available to interact with your data center fabric. And then we jumped into demos where we configured our Nexus devices using Ansible playbook. Then we jumped into Terraform, we jumped into NDFC, and then interacted with it programmatically. And all of these, you can say, scripts and playbooks and manifests that we have used into the demos are available right away into the publicly or official, I would say, GitHub repo. The link of the same will be shared with all of you post this webinar via and a follow-up email. And I would also try to share a lot of other developments that has been done by Alex, including the blogs, including the learning labs that he suggests to use for the Nexus and ACI automation. And yeah, that's a summary of it. Any last words, Alex, you would like to specify in this session?
That was a great summary, Abhijit. And yeah, I just want to say, as we mentioned, take advantage of DevNet's free resources, sign up for PyNet Labs, and remember, a lot of us are put under so much pressure that we are not devices. Okay, I just want to make this my last point. We are people. Okay,
Yeah.
so I practice mindfulness. Okay, and I'm not pushing any specific religion or anything. And I just want to mention compassion and mindfulness as principles. And just remember that we are all one community and to treat people accordingly and respect them and help each other and share. And that's what we're here for as advocates and as educators and providers like yourself. So I'm going to thank you for giving me the time to help share these technologies with the community and for all that you've done. I've learned so much from you in our interactions, and I will continue to follow and support you 100%.
I'm glad. Thank you so much for all your time, Alex, and thank you to everyone who have attended the webinar. And we shall see you in some other webinar on some other topic at another time, and looking forward to host so many webinars for you guys so that there's enough of content available for aspirants who are looking forward to learn automation in the domain. Have a great day ahead and good night. Thank you so much, Alex, and namaste from India, and looking forward to see you again. Bye-bye. Take care. Your host, Abhijit, signing off.